Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, The Primordial Law. Volume 2, Julie Insect Valley. Chapter 34, 61, Sihang's Enlightenment. 34th of Volume 2. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Before Li Wei's palm even reached him, the imprint force condensed in front of it had already compressed the air, causing it to sink inward. Boom. Lu Shen's perception and combat experience were unparalleled. Even in the darkness, his swift tiger claw strike collided precisely with Li Wei's palm. That terrifying force surged forward once more. Lu Shen felt as if his tiger claw and arm no longer belonged to him, losing all sensation. The next moment, a heavy palm strike slammed into his chest. PFF'd. Lu Shen's 3-meter-tall tiger-like body was sent flying backward. Before he could regain his balance, Li Wei, stepping on a silver mist of spiritual power, pursued him. With a finger like a sword, he pierced through Lu Shen's forehead, shattering his skull. This was the Sihang Enlightenment, Merciful Fairy Enlightenment, a finger technique from the 12 dispersed hands of the Chan sect. Just as he executed this technique, Li Wei faintly sensed a surge of spiritual power in his right index and middle fingers, as if they were about to intertwine and condense into a strand of qi that would shoot out from his body. However, due to insufficient power, the finger force failed to fully materialize. He speculated that once he reached the 7 springs opening or the 8 springs opening, when his spiritual power became even more abundant, this technique might undergo some miraculous transformation. The veins extending from his Tanjiang 6th spring had increased to 6. Li Wei listened to the wind, turned, and struck out with both palms, aiming at the 2 7 springs martial mystic cultivators who were swinging their swords through the air. Behind him, a loud boom echoed as Lu Shen crashed to the ground 3 meters away, blood and brain matter gushing from his forehead. He would never stand again. Bang! Bang! The battle swords in the hands of the 2 7 springs martial mystic cultivators shattered under Li Wei's palms. In a flash, he seized one of their heads, and a sharp crack of a broken neck followed. The corpse was hurled away, crashing into the other 7 springs martial mystic cultivator, who was left holding only a broken sword. That martial mystic cultivator, catching the corpse of her companion, blood still gushing from her mouth, seemed to be participating in such brutal killing for the first time. She let out a silent scream, then clutched the body and fled towards the shore, her sobs and cries barely audible. Judging by her voice and figure, she appeared to be a young woman. These two were most likely disciples from some sect. Li Wei didn't bother to pursue them. He knew something was amiss tonight. The city defense camp was holed up, and neither the Changgulan gang nor Yang Yun possessed the power to achieve this. After breaking through the encirclement, he didn't linger to fight. Instead, he headed straight for Yang Yun. He would retrieve the yellow dragon sword and leave immediately. He could abandon other spiritual artifacts, but not the yellow dragon sword. Yang Yun saw through Li Wei's intentions and smiled. Light as a swallow, he sprinted toward the silver-horned elk carriage parked on the shore. If you want the sword, catch me. Hold him off for 10 breaths, and I'll give you 100,000 silver coins tomorrow at the Yang clan. His second sentence was directed at Murong Xiao, who was perched atop the mast. What a bargain. Murong Xiao unfurled her black feathered wings, drew her 3-meter-long bow, and dove toward Li Wei, who was pursuing Yang Yun across the fishing boats. Hold you off for 10 breaths. Do you even have the strength? Li Wei glanced coldly at the descending shadow. He activated the clear void cicada chasing step, his feet treading on a mist of spiritual power. After drifting 3 feet to the right, he shot skyward, appearing directly above Murong Xiao. From her previous high vantage point, Murong Xiao had been too far away to see how Li Wei had repeatedly dodged her long arrows. Now, at close range, she finally understood. His footwork was too uncanny, visible, yet impossible to evade. Li Wei slammed a palm down at her head. Murong Xiao twisted her body with all her power, barely managing to meet the blow with her own palm. Boom! The force of the impact sent Murong Xiao plummeting, her body crashing through the wooden boat. The cabin erupted in a cacophony of clattering pots, pans, and debris. In the end, Murong Xiao's high ranking in 7 Springs Hall was due to her unique flying advantage and her spiritual artifact giant bow. Without these two advantages, her combat strength was slightly inferior to Yao Zhengsheng and Lu Shen. Yang Yun landed on the shore and leapt onto the silver-horned elk carriage. Waving to Li Wei, who was still 30 meters away, he smiled. Want to reclaim this spiritual artifact war sword? Come with me to Zhuli City. Crack. He cracked his whip. The silver-horned elk, stung by the whip, bolted forward. These strange beasts could directly breathe and absorb the law of heaven and earth, dissolving its energy into their blood to constantly evolve and refine their bodies. Think you can just leave so easily? Li Wei channeled his spiritual power, transforming it into spiritual qi that left his body. The 3-inch dagger Yang Yun had thrown earlier had cut Li Wei's neck, pierced through the 8-meter wooden boat, and lodged in a thick mast. Now, pulled by the spiritual qi, it flew back into Li Wei's hand. Instantly, he unleashed the flying needle technique he had learned as a child. With a whoosh, the 3-inch dagger, like a bright spark, sliced through the water and the night. 20 meters away, the silver-horned elk let out a piercing scream. Its head was pierced through, and the gilded carriage behind it tumbled off the embankment, rolling down the slope. How is this possible? Yang Qingxi stared intently at the shore, utterly stunned. She had never imagined that the unremarkable youth, who looked like a mere servant at first glance, had actually sent 3 top 100-strong warriors flying. Even with the aid of spiritual artifacts, such combat prowess was still remarkable. The crucial question was, how could a Spring Surge realm martial mystic cultivator, without a pure immortal physique or a distinguished background, possess several spiritual artifacts? Even Li Ling and Yang Yun, with their noble status, didn't have such treasures. There were too many inconsistencies, making Yang Qingxi's loss of composure understandable. Though Li Weiyi's performance was dazzling, who among those present hadn't been equally brilliant in their youth? After a brief moment of admiration, they returned to the matter at hand. Great Zen Master Yuzhen chuckled. Miss Yang, does such a minor incident truly warrant such a display of emotion? The task we're undertaking is earth-shattering, a matter of reshaping the heavens and earth. I seriously doubt your capacity to represent the Sui sect. Losing composure isn't the worst thing. The truly terrifying thing is incontinence. Ah. A brazen, childish voice, utterly out of place, suddenly cut through the air. Shi Zhoujai immediately slapped the chubby boy who had been talking nonsense and stuffing his face, slamming his entire face into his plate. He then offered Yang Qingxi an awkward smile, who glared at him. How could you say something like that to someone's face? Yang Qingxi quickly regained her composure, unwilling to lose face in front of this crowd of heretics and villains and be underestimated. She said, tell me, who exactly is the person you brought? How much of what he says is credible? Great Zen Master Yuzhen, never one to mince words, chuckled. Old Li is one of the top 10 most powerful figures in the Zhu clan. How dare you, a mere junior, question him? Yang Qingxi, Shi Zhoujai, and even the Long clan man exchanged stunned glances, all turning to stare at the mysterious old man shrouded in a wide black robe. Great Zen Master Yuzhen continued, if Coffin Mountain can bring Old Li into this, then I ask you all, are we not qualified to conspire on great matters together? Being among the top 10 in the Zhu clan meant one of two things: they were either one of the 9 clan chiefs or one of the 9 great priests. This was far more significant than anyone had anticipated. Shi Zhoujai slammed his fist on the table in admiration, roaring with laughter. Coffin Mountain truly has grand ambitions. I never imagined they'd infiltrated the Zhu clan's upper echelons. The mysterious old man in the black robe spoke calmly, his voice level. I know the Zhu clan has long been rotten to its core, and it won't survive this calamity. Rather than be annihilated by you all, reduced to male slaves and female prostitutes, it's better to adopt a strategy of indirect salvation. After this calamity, at least the Zhu clan won't be completely wiped out. In this way, we can honor our ancestors above and our descendants below. Shi Zhoujai didn't know if the Zhu clan elder truly believed this or had been coerced by Coffin Mountain. It no longer mattered. He silently murmured his admiration. Yang Qingxi and the Long clan man shared the same sentiment. They didn't find Elder Li's words laughable, only Coffin Mountain terrifying. The mysterious old man in the black robe continued, I'm not entirely sure how much strength the Zhu hidden sect still possesses. But I believe that if you launch an attack without understanding this matter first, the price you'll pay might be more than you can bear. Does Elder Li have a way to locate the Zhu hidden sect and ascertain their strength? Yang Qingxi asked. The mysterious old man in the black robe replied, every year, the 9 great tribes select 1 or more youths to send to the Zhu hidden sect. The time for this year's selection is fast approaching. If you trust me, postpone your attack plan and wait until we've thoroughly investigated the hidden sect before striking. Wouldn't that give you a much greater chance of success? Yang Qingxi and Shi Zhoujai remained skeptical of the old man's sincerity, suspecting it might be a delaying tactic by the Zhu clan. Their gazes shifted to Great Zen Master Yuzhen. Great Zen Master Yuzhen himself was uncertain whether the Zhu clan elder could be trusted and turned to the white robe Jushi. The white robe Jushi's appearance had changed slightly since yesterday's noodle meal, but the blood-red prayer beads in her hand remained unchanged. Her gaze remained fixed on the fierce battle unfolding on the shore as she spoke in a calm, unhurried tone. Old Li, bring out the person you plan to send to the Zhu hidden sect. Let everyone have a look. Li Qing. The mysterious old man in the black robe called out in a low voice. From behind him, a tall, slender youth who appeared to be 17 or 18 years old stepped forward. Dressed in a black martial arts outfit, with sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, he showed no sign of nervousness in the face of the assembled giants. The mysterious old man in the black robe declared, Li Qing has already opened the 9 springs within him. Sending him to the Zhu hidden sect gives him a high chance of becoming the hidden ones of this generation, making uncovering the hidden sect's secrets a certainty. Opened the 9 springs. Really? Shi Zhoujai asked, both curious and astonished. A martial mystic cultivator who had opened the 9 springs was considered a supreme being, an extremely rare figure whom even the most powerful cultivators would treat with respect. At that moment, the battle on the shore took a dramatic turn. The mysterious young man, who had been surrounded and hunted, broke through the encirclement, even shooting down Yang Yun's mount. His ferocity was overwhelming. The influential figures on the ship were completely captivated by the battlefield, momentarily forgetting their meeting. Xu Changgulan, the Changgulan gang leader, and Tang Yan, the vice gang leader, arrived at the entrance of the main hall and requested orders. Young mistress, the situation has changed. Young Master Yun is in danger. Xu Changgulan requests permission to engage. Tang Yan will personally eliminate that young upstart. Yang Qingxi's face darkened. What she had intended as an amusing spectacle to showcase the Sui sect's dominance in Zhuli City had backfired spectacularly, leaving her humiliated in front of all the gathered factions. She was about to dispatch the two 5 Seas realm experts to clean up the mess when the white-robed Jushi's calm voice echoed from outside the door. In such a fine performance, involving 5 Seas realm experts would completely ruin the fun. She saw more clearly than anyone else that the young man who had treated her to noodles hadn't broken through the 8th or 9th spring. He had opened the 6th spring, the Tanjiang spring. This was beyond her comprehension. Blank. End of chapter. Novel, The Primordial Law. Volume 2, Zhuli Insect Valley. Chapter 35, 62, The Only Chance of Survival. 35th of Volume 2. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. The giant warship flying the Sui flag was only 100 paces from the shore. Shi Zhoujai sat facing the window. With his cultivation, he could clearly see Li Wei's face. A sense of familiarity stirred within him. After careful recollection, he realized it was the little wolf cub he had met in Burial Immortal Town. He had completely misjudged the situation that day. Who exactly was this person? How interesting. Shi Zhoujai murmured, then after a moment's thought, added, I agree with Senior N. It's utterly inappropriate for two 5 Seas realm cultivators to crash a battle between Spring Surge realm top 100 strong warriors. Let's start a betting pool. Will he manage to break through and escape? A betting pool. Yang Qingxi sneered inwardly. She wasn't blind to the white-robed Jushi and Shi Zhoujai's intentions. They were clearly trying to protect the young man, deliberately creating an escape route for him. Perhaps they valued his talent, or perhaps they were after the spiritual artifacts he possessed. Or maybe they had seen something she hadn't. But one thing was certain, once the young man escaped, Coffin Mountain and the Earthwolf King's army would hunt him down. If she insisted on sending Xu Changgulan and Tang Yan after him, she'd be openly defying the white-robed Jushi and Shi Zhoujai. If those two persisted and even intervened personally, the situation would become far too embarrassing. Even if Li Wei had displayed such extraordinary combat prowess, Yang Qingxi still considered him insignificant. Any 5 Seas realm cultivator could easily kill him. But now, not only did the Kandli tribe take him seriously, but the white-robed Jushi and Shi Zhoujai also seemed to have their own agendas. Yang Qingxi naturally had to treat him with utmost caution. Since you two wish to watch the show, I wouldn't spoil your fun. He's just a Spring Surge realm cultivator. In Li Province, the Sui sect doesn't even need to send a 5 Seas realm cultivator to make him vanish into dust. Yang Qingxi waved her hand, dismissing Xu Changgulan and Tang Yan. Then she called out, Shui Zheng. Shui Zheng, who stood guard at the main hall entrance, his entire body covered in silver metallic muscle and skin, stood with his hand on his sword, his eyes fixed on the 9 Springs Supreme, Li Qing, with a look of eager anticipation. Hearing the summons from inside, Shui Zheng retracted his gaze, took 2 steps forward, and knelt on one knee before the main hall. Young mistress, rest assured. This subordinate will retrieve that man's head immediately and ensure he doesn't harm young Master Yun. Shui Zheng rose and looked toward the riverbank. He channeled his spiritual power, which transformed into a swirling mist of radiant clouds that spilled from his body. Then, like a cannonball, he shot off the giant warship's deck, landing on the water surface some 30 meters away. Boom. The spiritual chi clouds beneath his feet were so dense that he didn't sink. He stood on the river's surface, sword in hand, and sprinted forward like a shooting star. Li Wei charged toward the riverbank where the silver-horned elk carriage had overturned. He channeled his spiritual power into his silver silk gloves, determined to end the fight swiftly and prevent the pursuers behind him from closing in. Whoosh! Yang Yun, hidden in the shadows behind the carriage, seized his opportunity and leapt into the air. He thrust out his sword. Li Wei was already a dozen feet off the ground, his arm blurring into an afterimage as he met Yang Yun's attack head-on. Bang! 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 Blow after blow clashed, their figures shifting and dodging. Moments later, Li Wei landed on the overturned carriage, having already used his spirit treasure seizing hand to retrieve the yellow dragon sword. A surge of joy flooded his heart, like reuniting with a beloved treasure he thought lost forever. In contrast, Yang Yun crashed awkwardly into the shallow water at the riverbank, his body smashing through the roof of a fishing boat's awning. With a loud clang, the boat's lamp fell, and the fishing boat immediately burst into flames. Suddenly, Li Wei felt a premonition. He glanced toward the center of the river, where the massive warship had remained motionless. A streak of silver light shot out from the deck, hurtling toward the riverbank where he stood. Even from that distance, he could feel the opponent's fierce blade intent and killing intent. He also sensed that he was locked in the opponent's gaze. Shui Zheng, the fourth member of the Seven Springs Hall of Lizhou, the silver half-immortal physique, the invincible swordsman. Though Shui Zheng's gaze locked onto Li Wei, making him deeply uncomfortable, the true source of his sense of impending danger lay in the giant warship. 1,000 thoughts flashed through his mind. Li Wei channeled his spiritual power into the yellow dragon sword, leaping into the air and thrusting the blade directly at Yang Yun. Perhaps only by capturing Yang Yun as a hostage before Shui Zheng arrived could he have a chance of survival tonight. Yang Yun had naturally noticed Shui Zheng's arrival. Moreover, Shi Chuanyu, Murong Xiao, and others were already closing in, having arrived even sooner. He only needed to hold off Li Wei for a breath or two, and the situation would be completely reversed. Excellent. Yang Yun stood in the water, the flames behind him casting a crimson glow. He laughed heartily. The 8th Spring Wind Palace contains a miniature Qi Sea, which is why those who open all 8 springs are also known as the 5 Seas. Today, I'll show you the true power of an 8 springs opening. Yang Yun knew his previous mistake had been foolish. Despite being unable to wield the spiritual artifact battle sword, he had stubbornly insisted on using it. He would never repeat that error. He channeled the spiritual power from all 8 springs into his arm, preparing to unleash his void-piercing fist, a technique he had cultivated for years. The spiritual power on his fist shone like a bright star. Boom. With a single punch, the spiritual qi in Yang Yun's Wind Palace Qi Sea was instantly depleted, surging into his arm to form a tangible fist-strike shockwave that caused the air itself to explode with a deafening roar. This was the trump card of an 8 springs opening martial mystic cultivator. By exhausting all the spiritual qi in his Wind Palace, he unleashed a single, ultimate attack that approached the power of the 5 Seas realm. It was only one strike, but it was enough to reign supreme in the Spring Surge realm. Even though Li Wei had been mentally prepared, he was still sent flying backward by the force of the fist strike. It felt as if he had been struck by an invisible punch, and his internal organs ached. Fortunately, he had activated the corpse garment soft armor he wore beneath his clothes with his spiritual power, which greatly mitigated the impact of the shockwave. After the 6th spring opening, his spiritual power had reached a higher level. When he activated the corpse garment soft armor now, he could clearly feel a chilling sensation emanating from it. The soft armor released wisps of air that swirled rapidly around his body. Of course, in this situation, Li Wei had no time to remove his outer robe and examine it. Yang Yun's smile quickly froze as he realized that Li Wei, instead of falling to the ground after being sent flying, was now stepping on thin air and returning to the attack. What kind of movement technique is this? Li Wei's sword moved with the speed of a butcher slicing vegetables. In 3 consecutive strikes, the first severed Yang Yun's top knot, the second pierced his collarbone, and the third slashed across his thigh. Finally, Li Wei clamped his 5 fingers around Yang Yun's neck, completely immobilizing him. With the slightest pressure, he could twist off Yang Yun's head. You can't kill me. My sister is on the ship. You won't get away. Yang Yun's face was pressed against the water, like a cat caught by the scruff of its neck. His face was deathly pale, and he dared not move a muscle, his previous arrogance and malice completely extinguished. Li Wei, release young Master Yun, and I'll let you leave, Shi Chuanyu shouted as he caught up. Li Wei ignored him, his gaze fixed on the swift figure that had just crossed the river and entered the fishing boat area, a figure seemingly forged from silver. I need your permission to leave. Do you even have the right to say that? Li Wei crushed the last blood bag on his scripture belt. With one hand holding Yang Yun and the other wielding his sword, he charged toward Shi Chuanyu, Murong Xiao, and the other figures closing in. After a few breaths, Li Wei had broken through their encirclement and reached the embankment. He now bore several more wounds, blood streaming down his cheeks and arms. Inside the dam, 2 more corpses of 7 Springs martial mystic cultivators lay. Spiritual power erupted beneath his feet, transforming him into a phantom in the night. He charged downstream along the riverbank, Yang Yun feeling as light as a feather in his arms. Since Yang Qingxi was on the boat, jumping into the Sui River would be like walking into a trap. Even carrying someone, he can move this fast. He must have quite a few spiritual artifacts. Shui Zheng, sword in hand, caught up to the riverbank. Li Wei was already 10 yards ahead. It was easy to imagine that if he weren't carrying Yang Yun, his speed wouldn't be inferior to those 9 Springs Supremes, perhaps even comparable to some 5 Seas realm cultivators. So fast. No wonder he's ranked among the top 5 Spring Surge realm cultivators in Li Province. Anyone who achieves such a ranking must possess extraordinary divine abilities. Li Wei was struggling to figure out how to shake off Shui Zheng when he suddenly saw Yao Zhengsheng's 4-meter-tall giant ape form standing like a wall in the middle of the road. Holding 1,000 catty iron staff, Yao Zhengsheng exuded the imposing aura of one man holding back 10,000. Li Huayi was already covered in wounds, his body and spirit exhausted. Facing Yao Zhengsheng, a man with innate divine strength who had also mastered the mountain-splitting staff technique to the heavenly Dao Law Convergence realm, he felt like he had reached the end of the road. Moreover, even if Yao Zhengsheng could only hold him off for a round or two, Shui Zheng, who was hot on his heels, would arrive in an instant. How would he escape then? Yao Zhengsheng's mountain-splitting staff technique, when combined with heavenly Dao Law Convergence, was impossible to evade. He was trapped in a dead end. But how could he hope to survive if he didn't overcome this obstacle? Li Huayi took a deep breath, his speed unwavering as he charged straight toward Yao Zhengsheng, who stood in the middle of the road. The yellow dragon sword in his hand blazed with blinding light, and his gaze grew even more resolute. Each barrier overcome leads to the next. If a mountain stands before me, I will split it. If the heavens block my path, I will cleave them open. 24 feet, 21 feet, 18 feet. The distance closed rapidly. Li Huayi's blood boiled, his pores dilated, and his fighting spirit surged to its peak. 12 feet, 9 feet. In the final 6 feet, Li Huayi let out a long roar that echoed across the Sui River. He leapt off the ground, his eyes fixed on Yao Zhengsheng's every subtle movement, his breath, his pores, his muscles, like a sword. Yao Zhengsheng, though waiting in ambush, knew the young man before him was formidable and remained fully focused. Spiritual chi surged from his body as he swung his 1,000 catty iron staff, instantly entering the state of heavenly Dao Law Convergence. The staff crashed down like a collapsing mountain. 8 winds converged, creating a terrifying spectacle. Whoosh! Li Huayi, suspended in midair, saw only an endless sea before him, Yao Zhengsheng nowhere in sight. Li Huayi entered a state of the law convergence realm of heaven and earth, I alone am supreme. He swung his sword straight down, the sword's light cleaving the sea and reaching toward the horizon. PFF'd. Behind him, Shui Zheng, standing just 4 yards from the battlefield, watched the desperate clash between the two law convergence realm experts. In the end, Li Huayi was just a hair faster. But that hair's breadth determined victory and death. With a single strike, he cleaved away most of Yao Zhengsheng's head. Li Huayi, carrying Yang Yun, leapt over Yao Zhengsheng's corpse as a fountain of blood erupted from the severed head. Shui Zheng stood 4 yards away, his wind palace spiritual chi surging into his arms. His entire body, from muscles to skin, glowed with a brilliant silver light. Rings of chi energy radiated outward, sending dust billowing into the air and shattering the stone slabs beneath his feet. He raised his sword above his head and slashed through the air. A domineering sword light, unmatched in its ferocity, tore through the night like a black cloth. Wop wop wop. Where the sword light passed, a deep groove appeared in the stone slabs, stretching directly toward Li Huayi 4 yards away. After landing, Li Huayi seemed completely unaffected, immediately plunging into the darkness. Shui Zheng wore a look of bewilderment. He couldn't believe someone in the Spring Surge realm could withstand his most powerful strike and still escape at full speed, even though the sword's energy had weakened considerably after traveling 4 yards. You're still bleeding. Put me down quickly. You might still be able to escape. Yang Yun felt his hair sticking to his scalp, soaked with the blood gushing from Li Huayi's mouth. You're slowing down. They'll catch up soon. Not just Shui Zheng, but also someone from the Five Seas realm. Li Huayi slapped Yang Yun unconscious with a single palm strike. After charging over a dozen miles, the suburban houses gradually thinned out, giving way to vast fields of farmland shrouded in darkness. On the other side, the sound of rushing water grew louder. The giant warship on the Sui River was long out of sight. Li Huayi's vision blurred. Having used the corpse garment soft armor to withstand Shui Zheng's fatal strike, he suffered severe internal injuries. Combined with his external wounds and the extreme physical exhaustion from continuous fighting, he was relying solely on his will to survive and his unyielding fighting spirit to stay on his feet. Without hesitation, he retrieved the evil camel bell and channeled his spiritual power to shake it. Clang! Clang! Whoosh! A colossal, 3 to 4 meter tall camel, half solid, half ethereal, materialized in the chilling wind. Li Huayi mounted the creature, feeling as if he were riding on a cloud of cotton. He laid the unconscious Yang Yun across the camel's back, then, concealed by the ghost banner's nether mist, urged the beast to gallop away at breakneck speed. Shui Zheng, who had finally caught up, could only hear the faint sound of camel bells fading into the darkness. Blank. End of chapter. Novel. The Primordial Law. Volume 2. Julie Insect Valley. Chapter 36-63 Fight between Dragon and Tiger. 36th of Volume 2. Translator. Shadow Knight AK. Editor. Shadow Knight AK. On the giant warship, the various influential figures watching the battle on the shore were all speculating about the cultivation realm and background of the Surging Spring Jr. with several spiritual artifacts. To kill so many Seven Springs martial mystic cultivators and top 100 strong warriors in a single night, then cut through the Sui River under heavy siege, I doubt I could have done that in the Spring Surge realm. This kid has truly made a name for himself tonight. Shi Jiuzhai exclaimed in admiration. The Long Clan man remained at the bow of the ship, as if rooted there, and said calmly, the world never lacks geniuses, but those with such combat will and combat wisdom are exceedingly rare. Once he breaks through to the 5 seas. Shi Jiuzhai turned to Yang Qingshi's ice-cold face and asked, what's his name? Why doesn't you ask the great Zen master, Dharma King Jiuzhai? Yang Qingshi naturally had no good feelings for Shi Jiuzhai. If he and the white-robed Jushi hadn't intervened, how could that Spring Surge Realm Jr. have captured Yang Yun right before her eyes and escaped unscathed? If they were to lose face, they would lose it together. After all, the murder warrant was posted on your 5 burials temple's notice board. Great Zen Master Yuzhen chuckled dismissively, haha, accidents happen when killing. Don't take it too hard, Miss Yang. The Chang'an gang's 2 5 Seas realm experts have already gone after him. They'll definitely bring your brother back. With her own brother captured, the white-robed Jushi and Shi Jiuzhai couldn't very well continue their opposition. They each dispatched one of their own to join the rescue effort. Yang Qingshi had recovered from her initial fury and spoke calmly. Yang Yun is a cultivator of the 8th spring and the eldest son of the Yang clan. Surrounded by so many experts, he was still captured by an unknown nobody. Even if he dies, it's only because he was overconfident and underestimated his opponent. He has no one to blame but himself, right, Senior N. Dharma King Jiuzhai. Yang Yun's capture and uncertain fate had become a bargaining chip for her to gain more advantages. The first negotiation over the division of Li province officially began. They could only agree on a general framework. The actual decision on how to carve up Li province would be made by the true elder giants behind them. Of course, such a meeting at that level would mean war was imminent. In the end, they decided to play it safe and first follow Elder Li's plan to scout out the Zhu hidden sect. However, there was another crucial reason for postponing the war. It was the massive upheaval in Burial Immortal Town. Having already come to Li province, how could they possibly pass up the chance to investigate? If it had drawn every elder from Zhu city, the opportunity must be extraordinary. What exactly had happened there? Roar. With a tiger's roar that shook the night sky, Kang Li, mounted on a Zhuwu strange beast resembling a giant tiger, stood tall, brandishing a 10-foot-long silver spear as he charged out of Zhu city's gates toward the arched bank of the Sui River in the distance. The giant tiger raised its head and roared, causing the river waves to churn. On the giant warship, doors and windows rattled, the Sui flag fluttered wildly, and every object trembled. Great Zen Master Yuzhen said, the battle inside the city seems to be over. Miss Yang, have the Yang clan and the Kandli tribe completely severed ties this time? Impossible, Yang Qingshi chuckled, our 2 families have been intermarrying for generations. Our blood ties are deep. A minor conflict like this could never sever our bond. Really? I thought he looked rather murderous. Shi Jiuzhai stared intently at the distant shore, where Kang Li rode a Zhuwu strange beast, its hooves pounding the Sui River. Spiritual qi overflowed, condensing into a towering tiger shadow dozens of meters high, stirring up monstrous waves that threatened to capsize the entire giant warship. Now is not the time for you to reveal yourselves. I'll go meet this so-called inheritor of the Zhu clan and see if he truly lives up to the title. Whoosh. The Long clan man vanished from the deck in a blur. The next moment, he reappeared dozens of meters away on the water's surface, walking against the current of the Sui River. Spiritual qi clouds swirled around him, making him look like a handsome immortal, as he charged towards Kang Li, who was riding the Zhuwu strange beast. All the spiritual qi clouds coalesced into a massive dragon shadow, which let out a high-pitched roar as it snaked through the water. Boom. Boom. Dragon and tiger clashed, their spiritual qi colliding with such force that the Sui River threatened to be split in 2. The people from Coffin Mountain and the Earthwolf King's army seized the opportunity to slip away from the giant warship, silently disappearing into the eternal night. Yang Qingshi sat beside the spiritual artifact bone lamp, her bright eyes fixed on the 2 figures locked in battle on the river below. Her gaze had returned to its original calm, devoid of any visible emotion. No one knew what thoughts swirled within her mind. In this world, truth and falsehood are intertwined, often impossible to discern. It's better to pretend to be transparent than to be truly understood. Shi Chuanyu, dragging his injured body, climbed aboard the giant warship. With a resounding thud, he knelt at Yang Qingshi's feet, wailing, young mistress, your subordinate has failed. Young Master Yun has been captured by Thief Li. I am prepared to accept any punishment. Yang Qingshi produced a 5 C's pill, letting it fall to the ground as if slipping from her fingertips. She rose gracefully, her long, light gauze skirt trailing behind her, her porcelain white skin and jade-like body ascending the stairs to the 2nd floor of the ship's tower. She spoke softly, you've opened the 8th spring, you're a talent. But after taking this 5 C's pill, whether you break through to the 5 C's realm or not, You must bring Yongyun and Li Wei back to me. Dead or alive. Xuanhuan was overjoyed, stuffing the 5 C's pill into his mouth as if devouring a wolf. He then kowtowed repeatedly, I swear to slay Thief Li and rescue young Master Yun. Yongyun awoke to his own screams, his right arm twisted and broken by Li Wei. He looked around, finding no trace of his own men, and realized he was about to meet his end at the hands of this murderous star. Regret washed over him, followed by a wave of despair. He was the eldest son of the Yang clan, having broken through the 8th spring at just 17, with the potential to reach the 9 springs supreme. Even if he failed to break through to the 9 springs, he could take the 5 C's pill and instantly become a 5 C's realm expert. What a glorious future awaited him. To die here, he couldn't accept it. His left arm was twisted and broken next. After screaming in agony, Yongyun desperately blurted out, Brother Li. Listen to me. Killing me won't benefit you in any way. As long as you spare my life, I'll do anything. His right leg was broken. Sweat poured down Yongyun's face as his body trembled violently. Panic overwhelmed him, and in his dazed state, he rambled incoherently, I have money. I'll pay for my life. How much? In the darkness, Li Wei, who had remained silent until now, suddenly spoke. Yongyun's spirits lifted. This trick had actually worked. He quickly said, many. I have a lot of money. Name a number, Li Wei said. Yongyun stammered, 100. No, 10 million silver coins. 10 million silver coins was equivalent to 1 billion copper coins. Li Wei didn't believe he could possibly have that much money and sneered. Fearing Li Wei wouldn't believe him, Yongyun rushed to say, I don't have it, but my sister does. Brother Li. Believe me, from this moment on, I owe you 10 million silver coins. If I can't pay, I'll use everything I can mortgage to repay you. I, Yongyun, always keep my word. Alright. I'll remember that. You owe me 10 million silver coins and a carriage, Li Wei said. Yongyun was just feeling pleased at how easily he had fooled Li Wei when he let out another scream. Li Wei had broken his left leg. That's much safer now. Otherwise, I was worried you might break the rope and escape. Li Wei bound Yongyun's limbs to a small boat and threw his blood-stained robe over him. Then, he slit Yongyun's wrist, letting the blood slowly drip into the river. After finishing, Li Wei pushed the boat into the water, releasing Yongyun. Swept along by the swift current, the boat rapidly drifted downstream. Yang clan and Sui sect, if they can find you before your blood runs dry, it means fate has spared you. I'll come to the Yang clan to settle the score another day. Ignoring Yongyun's curses, Li Wei plunged into the water and swam toward the opposite bank of the Sui River. Yongyun's scent would draw the pursuers downstream, giving Li Wei enough time to escape into the Mengshan mountain range. He hoped to heal his injuries before they caught up. Reaching the other side, Li Wei immediately took a fresh set of clothes from his evil camel bell and charged into the night-shrouded mountains. The Mengshan mountain range was a vast, towering chain that stretched north-south along the western border of Li province. To the south, it connected to the domain of the Death Mist domain and the Blood Sea, extending 1,000 miles north into Ji Prefecture. Legend had it that every peak in this immense, mysterious mountain range was the tomb of an emperor. The tomb of the Azure King was one of them. After fleeing all night, Li Wei had already ventured deep into the Mengshan mountain range. As dawn broke, he finally collapsed. His body went limp, and he fell onto a thick bed of fallen leaves in a dense forest. His injuries were severe, and his stamina was completely depleted. At that moment, he didn't want to think about anything. He just wanted to sleep, regardless of whether he would ever wake up. The sun rose. The first rays of sunlight filtered through the dense canopy, dappling his face with light and shadow. In that instant, a beam of light pierced through his body and appeared in his mind, illuminating the darkness within his skull. Lying on the ground with his eyes closed, Li Wei murmured, as day and night alternate, a flash of spiritual light suddenly appears, the path of the spiritual realm opens. Who would have thought that the flower I tried so hard to cultivate wouldn't bloom, while the willow I planted without intention would flourish? The more I tried to cultivate it, the less spiritual light appeared. But now, when I least wanted to cultivate, it finally appeared. Perhaps Senior Spirit Tablet was right. I had too many distractions in my mind during my previous cultivation attempts. Li Wei forced his exhausted and excruciatingly painful body to sit up. Following the meditation techniques taught by Senior Spirit Tablet, he began absorbing the radiant energy released by the sun, or, at least, what he would call the sun for now. The sunlight wasn't composed of individual rays but rather countless tiny particles. Before long, these microscopic light particles enveloped his body, penetrating and swirling within him. Their shimmering, rosy glow made his vitality appear incredibly vibrant as he sat cross-legged amidst the withered branches and fallen leaves. His wounds visibly began to heal. Day turned to night, and the cycle of life and decay continued. Simultaneously, the Tao Ancestor's Tai Chi fish, which had hung around his neck for years without ever activating, began to function after absorbing the light particles. The surrounding scenery, including the ground beneath Li Wei, underwent a dramatic transformation. Blank. End of chapter. Novel, The Primordial Law. Volume 2, Julie Insect Valley. Chapter 37, 64, The Xiaoyang Star. 37th of Volume 2. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. This primeval, dense jungle, towering ancient trees, gnarled vines, tangled shrubs and wild grasses, even the thick layer of fallen leaves beneath Li Wei, was being gradually torn apart and smeared away like a painting, vanishing into the blood-red mist. The ground beneath him was now bare, leaving only a vast expanse of reddish-brown earth. The soil wasn't hard or dry, it resembled the seabed of a dried-up ocean, stained blood-red by blood that had soaked into it for millennia. Li Wei sat cross-legged, eyes closed, meditating deeply, unaware of the changes occurring outside. When Senior Spirit Tablet taught the spiritual path meditation technique, he explained it this way. Light can penetrate even the most indestructible metal, boil the seas, and burn the heavens. It illuminates the universe. It is the most wondrous thing in the world, the source of all energy, and the fundamental basis for the birth of consciousness. Psychic telekinesis power is cultivated from soul consciousness, a path entirely distinct from the spiritual power cultivated through physical training. Soul consciousness is a mutated form of light particles. Cultivating psychic telekinesis power involves absorbing light particles from the universe and transforming them into spiritual light particles within the body. When enough spiritual light particles are accumulate, they coalesce into a ball of spiritual fire, which then breaks through the third eye spirit realm located at the Yintang acupoint. Li Wei understood the grandeur and mystery of light in the natural world. Like all energy on Earth, its ultimate source was almost entirely the sun. That colossal star suspended in the void was arguably the most awe-inspiring sight visible from Earth, wielding a domineering energy that surpassed all gods. Yet because it was always there, it had become commonplace, merely a patch of light in the sky. The meditation technique Senior Spirit Tablet had taught was called the one-blade grass meditation technique. Imagine yourself as a tiny plant, constantly absorbing light particles. Li Wei desperately wanted to picture himself as a blade of grass, but the magnificent sight of the Fusong divine tree he had seen from the bronze ship kept intruding into his mind. So, he decided to follow his instincts. He imagined himself as two Fusong divine trees, capable of drawing all the light particles between heaven and earth into his body to forge his own golden crow or sun. Under the scorching sun, Shui Zheng stood atop a hill in the Mang mountain range, brandishing his long blade. He had followed Li Wei's escape trail all the way here. Misled by the scent of Yang Yun's blood, he had indeed taken a detour. After backtracking, he finally discovered Li Wei's true escape route on the opposite bank of the Sui River, wasting considerable time. By the time he reached this point, it was already noon. In his field of vision, towering mountains pierced the sky, vast forests stretched between the peaks, and clouds billowed like steam. Numerous massive strange birds soared through the clouds in flocks. Deafening roars from unknown beasts echoed from deep within the mountains, instilling a sense of awe that discouraged any reckless actions. Legends of the Mengshan mountain range's supernatural phenomena, dangers, and bizarre occurrences were countless. Even Shui Zheng, a man of unwavering resolve and self-confidence, felt immense pressure as he ventured deeper into the mountains. Dozens of miles away, a large area suddenly darkened. Despite the clear sky above and no mountains to block the sun, how could such a strange phenomenon occur? Whoosh! Mirong Xiao caught up, retracting her black wings and landing beside Shui Zheng. The quiver on her back was already refilled with arrows. Chang'an gang leader Xu Chang'an has personally delivered Yang Yun to Zhu Li City to claim credit. Vice gang leader Tang Yan will arrive here within 15 minutes at most. Shui Zheng spoke with a metallic clang. Li Wei is severely wounded and can't have gone far. We must find him before his injuries heals, or killing him will become an extremely troublesome task. Mirong Xiao knew Shui Zheng, the fourth-ranked member of Seven Springs Hall, was formidable. Known as the invincible swordsman, he had never been defeated. Though three older men ranked above him, even they couldn't break through his silver half-immortal physique's defenses. However, their achievements were more dazzling, and they had lived longer, hence their rankings were higher. Shui Zheng was far younger than them. The reason he hadn't yet reached the Five Seas realm was because he aimed to become a Nine Springs Supreme. Though Mirong Xiao ranked 21st, she knew that in a one-on-one ground battle, Shui Zheng could kill her with a single strike. She said, young Miss Yang has multiplied the reward several times and added the news of Li Wei possessing multiple spiritual artifacts to the murder warrant. This will undoubtedly cause a major earthquake. I suspect even some Five Seas realm cultivators might be drawn here. We must hurry. Shish. Shish. The two followed Li Wei's lingering traces, disappearing over the hilltop. Countless motes of light from all directions converged on Li Wei's Yintang acupoint, located between his eyebrows. More and more gathered, coalescing into a larger, brighter point that filled the entire acupoint. A sensation of swelling and pain followed. Boom. The acupoint vibrated violently. A tiny space, no larger than a square inch, suddenly tore open in the center of his forehead. Within this miniature world, a rice grain-sized flame of spiritual light floated suspended. Countless spiritual light particles swirled around the flame, merging into it. A world born within the forehead. The human body truly is an unfathomable treasure trove. I've only just experienced spiritual light's sudden illumination, yet I've already accumulated enough spiritual light particles to open the third eye spiritual realm. Is this rate of absorbing light particles too absurd? Li Wei remembered that Kai Yutong had spent 7 days accumulating spiritual light particles after her own spiritual light's sudden illumination before she could open her third eye spiritual realm. Even then, it had earned the praise of Senior Spirit Tablet, who repeatedly hailed her as a prodigy on the spiritual path. Though his eyes remained closed, Li Wei could clearly see the tiny world beneath his forehead and the flame of spiritual light suspended at its center. The walls of this miniature world shimmered with iridescent light, a truly wondrous sight. This is the first realm of the spiritual master's 3 stages, the square-inch flame Fang Kun flame. Square inch refers to the size of the third eye Yin Tang spiritual realm. Flame refers to the size and intensity of the spiritual light flame. The second and third realms of the spiritual master are the square-inch blaze Fang Kun blaze and the square-inch bright flame Fang Kun bright flame. As for Li Ling's earthly flame realm, it belongs to the first realm of the great spiritual master's 3 realms, Fang Kai. The combat power of a great spiritual master corresponds to the 5 C's realm of martial mystic cultivators. Beyond that lies the spiritual master's Fang Zhong, corresponding to the Dao Seed realm of martial mystic cultivators. Fang Kun, square inch, Fang Kai, square foot, Fang Zhong, 10 foot. Mind Master, Great Mind Master, Spiritual Mind Master. It is said that only upon reaching the level of Spiritual Mind Master does one truly begin spiritual cultivation and the transformation of psychic telekinesis power. The first 2 realms are merely about cultivating and nurturing the flame. Li Wei opened his eyes and exhaled deeply. The fatigue, pain, and weakness in his body seemed to have eased considerably. But the sudden, drastic change in his surroundings startled him. He glanced around and immediately stood up. What is this place? Everywhere was shrouded in blood-red mist, wisps like gauze or smoke. The muddy ground beneath his feet left footprints with each step, and blood seeped into the impressions. Li Wei felt a chill run down his spine. He clearly remembered sitting in a primeval forest before his meditation, with an iron-hard barked tree just 3 steps away. The ground was covered in a thick layer of fallen leaves, emitting the musty scent of decaying vegetation. It couldn't be. Had he stumbled into something supernatural? The Mangshan mountain range itself was a vast imperial tomb complex, saturated with yin energy. Countless tales of dead spirits and other strange occurrences had circulated for generations. Moreover, on the other side of the mountain range lay the boundless, endless darkness of the nether realm of the dead. Li Wei had specifically researched the Mangshan mountain range because he knew the tomb of the Azure King was located there. Ironically, the more he learned, the more uneasy he became. Clang, clang, clang. He quickly retrieved the evil camel bell and removed the stone coffin, spirit tablet, and bone urn from within. These 3 beings undoubtedly understood the Mangshan mountain range. If he had inadvertently entered a forbidden zone, they might know how to help him escape. The blue and white bone urn, as soon as it touched the blood-soaked earth, seemed to detect something. It began bouncing excitedly, hopping around in the mud. How is this possible? How did you do this? How did you do this? Haha, I thought you'd need to reach the immortal realm in order to bring us here. This is so sudden. Am I dreaming? Seeing Master Guan's excitement and familiarity with the place, Li Wei finally relaxed. Master Guan, stop jumping around. What exactly is this place? Senior Spirit Tablet looked puzzled. You don't know where you are. Then how did you get here? Li Wei recounted how he had suddenly experienced a flash of inspiration and, in one breath, opened the third eye spiritual realm. The other 3 were no longer surprised by his heaven-defying cultivation talent, but they still fell into a long, frustrated silence. Senior Stone Coffin spoke first. It seems that for the master of the Dao ancestors Tai Chi fish to enter the Shaoyang star, it's not an insurmountable challenge. All one needs is to cultivate spiritual light. Senior Spirit Tablet exclaimed, this is simply unbelievable. What's there to marvel at? How can we mere mortals fathom a treasure like the Dao ancestors Tai Chi fish? Besides, the fact that he became its master proves he already had some connection to it, Master Guan said. Listening to their conversation, Li Wei fell into thought. He reached for his neck and pulled the Dao ancestors' Tai Chi fish from beneath his collar. The eyes of the 2 bronze yin-yang fish were now empty, only the pale green Dao ancestors' brow bone remained. The other, a pale red Buddha's relic, had vanished again, leaving a bean-sized hole in its place. Li Wei couldn't believe it. He tentatively asked, are we standing inside the Buddha's relic right now? Is the Buddha's relic what you call the Xuanhuan star? Li Wei had heard Zhao Meng's detailed explanation. Under a microscope, the Buddha's relic resembled a pale red planet like Mars, with towering mountain ranges, ancient river channels, and a vast, crimson withered sea. The bronze ship had once docked on the shores of that sea. Senior Spirit Tablet confirmed, the Xuanhuan star is indeed that fish eye. The blood-soaked ground beneath our feet is likely a fragment of that star. We know this because, 1,000 years ago, all of the cultivators gathered on this very planet before the Great Battle. Its mysteries, or rather, the mysteries of the Tao ancestors Tai Chi fish, far surpass your imagination. Senior Stone Coffin suggested, try walking forward and see if you can break through the blood mist. If they were truly standing inside a bean-sized Buddha's relic, it was an utterly mind-boggling concept. Li Wei forced himself to calm down. He took 7 steps forward, reaching the edge of the blood mist, and reached out to touch it. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Melworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel. The Primordial Law. Volume 2. Julie Insect Valley. Chapter 38 65 Cause and Effect Karma. 38th of Volume 2. Translator. Shadow Knight AK. Editor. Shadow Knight AK. Beneath the blood mist, a barrier formed, shifting from soft to solid, blocking his fingers from penetrating further. Li Wei peeled back the layers of blood mist with his hands, catching glimpses of the outside world. The towering and majestic Fusong Divine Tree and the boundless Tanggu Sea flashed before his eyes, replaced by a desolate landscape of reddish-brown earth. Just now. Did I just imagine that? He tried walking in other directions several times, but the blood mist blocked him in the same confined space, only a few dozen feet in diameter. Senior Spirit Tablet, unsure of the exact cause, analyzed, it's likely your psychic telekinesis power isn't strong enough. To reach further, to fully grasp the Xuanhuan star's mysterious power, you need more spiritual light and a higher cultivation realm. Li Wei asked, Masters, how did you ascend to the Xuanhuan star back then? Why did you gather here? And what exactly happened during the Great Battle 1,000 years ago? Silence hung heavy in the air for a long moment. It was Senior Stone Coffin who finally spoke, knowing too much at your current stage isn't necessarily a good thing. Just focus on cultivating diligently. Master Guan was even more direct, frankly, we don't know much either. Senior Spirit Tablet said, that's right. The three of us know some things, but we only grasp them superficially. Sharing them might mislead you. Whether you see it as a planet or Buddha's relic, you'll need to journey further along the spiritual path to uncover its secrets. This is your path. You must explore it yourself, step by step. Senior Stone Coffin seemed to recall something and added, there are 2 points I can share with you. First, all participants in the battle back then can return to Xuanhuan Star to heal their injuries of bodies or nourish their souls. The condition is that you must personally guide them. That's right. Master Guan exclaimed, his excitement as fervent as before, if my ashes are buried in this blood-soaked mud to nourish them, and then molded into a human form, there's a slim chance I might grow bones and flesh again, achieving a unique form of rebirth. Though the odds are incredibly slim. Senior Spirit Tablet shook his head, that won't work for me. My physical body was reduced to ashes, leaving only a tiny fragment of my soul. Senior Stone Coffin replied, you've always walked the spiritual path, cultivating psychic telekinesis power. Your physical body isn't as crucial. Even a fragment of your soul can be nourished and strengthened on Xuanhuan Star, allowing you to follow the path of a dead spirit. If the bronze ship hadn't malfunctioned 1,000 years ago, isolating us from the outside world, we might not be in this wretched state today. Listening to their conversation, Li Wei was dumbfounded, growing increasingly baffled by this planet, or rather, the Tao ancestors' Tai Chi fish. What kind of existence was it truly? The cause and effect karmic threads behind it felt beyond comprehension. Li Wei asked, how many people on the bronze ship are still clinging to life? Why weren't they all buried on Xuanhuan Star? Wouldn't that have given them all a chance at rebirth as a new life? Senior Jar sighed deeply, only the 3 of us are still clinging to life, along with Chan Hai Guanwu and Xuanhuan. Otherwise, why would the bronze ship's master have sent us 3 to be your guides? Because we also need your help, though the chance is incredibly slim. 1,000 years ago, we should have been buried on Xuanhuan Star, but something went wrong with the bronze ship. Its master seemed to be in an unusual state as well, Senior Stone Coffin added. Senior Spirit Tablet said, the Great War 1,000 years ago involved countless participants. The bronze ship carried only a fraction of them, perhaps 1% or even 1/10 of 1%. Many survived, and many more, like us, barely clung to life. All those who fought in that war are bound to you by cause and effect karma. You won't understand this now, but you will in time. Perhaps some survivors from that era will seek you out themselves. Fate is unpredictable. Senior Stone Coffin said, the second thing I know about the Xuanhuan Star has its extraordinary spatial properties. The light particles you absorbed in such a short time, rivaling what the greatest geniuses on the spiritual path could absorb in 7 days, and the breakthrough you achieved in your third eye spiritual realm, can be largely attributed to the Shaoyang star's spatial power. It's this spatial power that's pulling light particles from the surrounding space and drawing them to you with incredible force. Senior Spirit Tablet added, in short, with the aid of the Shaoyang star's spatial power, your psychic telekinesis power cultivation speed will be more than 10 times faster than those so-called geniuses. Of course, once you reach the level of spiritual mind master, the speed will inevitably slow down. At that point, it won't be as simple as just absorbing light particles anymore. 10 times faster. Doesn't that mean I could catch up to someone who's cultivated for 10 years in just 1 year? Or catch up to someone who's cultivated for 100 years in just 10 years? There is a long and arduous journey ahead. Li Wei couldn't see his 3 masters grinding their teeth, of course, he truly couldn't. He secretly wondered if his Fusong Divine Tree meditation technique also provided a boost, feeling both joy, shock, and worry. He worried because he retained his rationality and wouldn't let pride cloud his judgment. While spatial power made the path of the spirituality easier, absorbing large quantities of light particles would inevitably cause drastic environmental changes, such as the surrounding area growing dim. This would make him an easy target. Unless he cultivated in a remote, uninhabited place. Right, Senior Coffin, Senior Spirit Tablet, and Master Guan, if Shaoyang Star is a planet, why doesn't it feel heavy around my neck? And how do I get back? Before he could finish speaking, Li Wei felt a sudden, intense sensation of weightlessness, and his vision darkened. It was as if he had been instantly pulled into outer space or the Earth's core. In the dense forest, Shui Zheng, having caught Li Wei's scent, advanced cautiously with his long sword in hand, channeling his spiritual power to lighten his body as much as possible. From afar, he couldn't help but be stunned. At the end of the trail of scent and traces, there was no sign of Li Wei. Only a shallow red, pearl-like object hovered 3 feet off the ground, enveloped in countless motes of light. What is this? Shui Zheng wondered, utterly curious. Could this be the cause of the dimming light in this area earlier? Gradually, the motes of light around the pearl dwindled. Whoosh! Ripples spread in concentric circles across a radius of several dozen feet. Li Wei's body materialized out of thin air and crashed to the ground with a thud. He immediately checked the Tao Ancestors Tai Chi fish and found that the Buddha's relic had returned to the bronze fish's eye. Could it really have been inside this tiny relic all along? Before Li Wei could ponder further, he sensed danger. Looking up, he saw Shui Zheng flying towards him with a sword raised high. The sword gleamed brightly, radiating powerful spiritual energy. Picking up the yellow dragon sword from the ground, Li Wei met the attack head-on. Li Wei knew Shui Zheng's power was even more terrifying than Yao Zhengsheng's innate divine strength. He didn't try to meet Shui Zheng head-on, instead relying on the deft, entangling techniques of his swordplay. He would touch Shui Zheng's sword, entangle it, and then roll away to escape. How did he catch up so quickly? Li Wei glanced back as he fled forward. He realized it wasn't dawn anymore. It was past noon, already afternoon. He also noticed that in just half a day, his injuries had recovered by 50 to 60%. The internal injuries, in particular, no longer felt like his 5 vital organs and 6 bowels were about to split open with searing pain. The single spiritual light flame flickering in his third eye spiritual realm clearly couldn't account for such rapid healing. Shui Zheng pursued Li Wei relentlessly, his gaze sharp and focused. He naturally realized that the young man ahead possessed an extraordinary spatial treasure. This wasn't just a storage-type spiritual artifact. It was more like a legendary treasure, capable of assisting martial mystic cultivators in opening their Qi and helping spiritual mind masters expand their third eye spiritual realm during breakthrough cultivation. What kind of value would such a treasure hold? Not only Yang Qingxi, but even Yao Qian, the chief of the Sui sect, would likely go mad for it. And yet, this incredible opportunity was known only to him. Boom! The twang of a bowstring echoed deep within the dense forest. A 2-meter-long arrow with 4 feathered fletching shot forth faster than sound, piercing through ancient trees. The air currents whipped up fallen leaves into a swirling vortex. By the time Li Wei sensed the danger, the hidden arrow was already inches away. He could only roll sideways, narrowly dodging the attack. A gash opened across his shoulder. Boom! The arrow struck a tree as thick as a water barrel, cleaving the trunk in 2 with a thunderous crash. Murong Xiao's archery skills were peerless, amplified by her spiritual artifact, the giant bow. Hidden in the shadows, she was even more dangerous than when she had been in the sky. The voice of Senior Spirit Tablet resonated within the Buddha's relic. Try using your psychic telekinesis power. Use the spiritual light flame within your third eye spiritual realm to perceive what's behind you and the world around you. From this moment on, your physical body no longer exists. Li Wei's innate talent was exceptional. Even in this life or death crisis, he could swiftly comprehend Senior Spirit Tablet's theoretical teachings into reality. After clashing swords with Shui Zheng for over a dozen moves, Li Wei's perception sharpened further. A lamp seemed to ignite between his eyebrows, his skull became transparent, and his eyes lost all blind spots, allowing him to see in all directions. More precisely, it wasn't his eyes that saw, but his psychic telekinesis power. Murong Xiao's second arrow, spanning dozens of meters, struck from behind in a sneak attack. Li Wei didn't even turn around. With a mere shift, he dodged it. This was the advantage of cultivating both martial law and psychic telekinesis power. A pure martial mystic cultivator or spiritual mind master would have found it difficult to evade that arrow. Your spiritual light flame is now weak and scarce. This state won't last long. End the battle quickly. If you can't defeat them, lure them to the tomb of the Azure King. I'll guide you from there. However, my psychic telekinesis power is limited. I can't maintain constant awareness of the outside world. I'll guide you once every hour. Head south first. Senior Spirit Tablet instructed. Then let's end this battle. After once again repelling Shui Zheng, Li Wei didn't hesitate. He retrieved the black iron seal. He poured his spiritual power into it, striking it with the hilt of his sword. Li Wei had long wanted to strike Shui Zheng with a decisive blow, believing his metallic silver half-immortal physique would be highly susceptible to lightning. He hadn't used the black iron seal during the chase along the Sui River because its grand display would have immediately alerted Yang Qingxi, forcing her to intervene personally. Boom! Thunder roared. A blinding bolt of lightning, as thick as a wrist, shot forth. How can there still be a spiritual artifact? Shui Zheng's eyes burned with fury as he gritted his teeth, unable to find words to describe his current state. Terrified, he immediately dodged, but the lightning, having somehow summoned the thunder, curved and pursued him. Even as he desperately raised his sword to block, he was still struck and sent flying. He crashed heavily into the fallen leaves, his clothes turning to ash, his silver arms blackened and charred. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel.